What they didn't tell you about the Library of Alexandria fire. You were told the Library of Alexandria burned down and history moved on. But what if humanity lost knowledge that could have changed the world forever? And what if the real story is far more mysterious than they told you? So what really happened to the Library of Alexandria? Let's go back in time. The library that held the world's knowledge. A long time ago in the city of Alexandria in Egypt, there was one of the most famous centers of learning in the ancient world. It was not just a small library. It was a place where scholars from different lands came to study, write, and collect knowledge. Books from Greece, Egypt, Persia, India, and other civilizations were said to be stored there. Imagine that, knowledge from different parts of the world, all in one place. Some people even believed it held hundreds of thousands of scrolls filled with science, philosophy, history, and inventions far ahead of its time. But here is where the mystery begins. Because the library did not disappear in one simple moment. It faded step by step. One of the earliest major losses happened during a civil war in Egypt around 48 BC. A powerful Roman leader, Julius Caesar, became involved in a conflict in Alexandria. He supported Cleopatra, and soon the city became a battlefield. Caesar's enemies surrounded him by land and sea. To survive, he made a harsh decision. He ordered fire to be set to enemy ships. But the fire did not stay in the sea. It spread into the city. And according to ancient writers who visited Alexandria later, that fire reached parts of the great library. Some records suggest that important scrolls were destroyed during this chaos. One writer, Plutarch, explained that the fire spread from the docks and caused heavy damage in the city. Another historian, Strabo, who later visited Alexandria, hinted that a great loss of knowledge had already happened by his time. But even after this disaster, the story of the library was not completely over. There was still another part left. Many people don't know this, but there was likely more than one center of learning in Alexandria. One of them was connected to a temple called the Serapeum. This place also held books and was used as a study center for scholars. It survived for many years after the first destruction. But centuries later, the world changed. A new religion was spreading across the Roman Empire, Christianity, and old temples were beginning to fall. In 391 CE, the Roman emperor ordered that pagan temples should be destroyed. In Alexandria, a religious leader named Theophilus led an attack on the Serapeum. The temple was damaged, looted, and destroyed. Eyewitness accounts describe chaos inside the building, statues broken, rooms destroyed, and books lost. One writer said the temple was destroyed completely. Another said only the massive stone foundation remained. And just like that, another center of ancient knowledge disappeared. After this event, the great intellectual life of the old library system in Alexandria slowly faded away. There were still schools and scholars, but the famous library tradition was gone. Here is where things get interesting and controversial. For many centuries, people debated whether the library survived until the Arab conquest of Egypt in the 7th century. Some stories claimed it was still there when the Arabs arrived. But modern historians have found something very important. There is no strong evidence that the library still existed at that time. In fact, most serious scholars now agree that the library had already disappeared long before the Arabs arrived. But then, something strange happened centuries later. A new story appeared. And this story changed everything. Around the 12th or 13th century, a story suddenly appeared claiming that an Arab general named Amr ibn Alawith Makron burned the Library of Alexandria after conquering Egypt. The story said he used the books as fuel for the city baths. It was dramatic, it was shocking, and it spread quickly. But here is the problem. For over 600 years after the Arab conquest, no one mentioned this story. Not Arab historians, not Christian writers, not Byzantine sources. Complete silence. Then suddenly, centuries later, the story appears out of nowhere. This raised serious doubts. To understand this, we need to look at the time when the story appeared. It was during the Crusades, a long period of war between European forces and the Muslim world. During this time, emotions were high. Books, knowledge, and cultural pride became part of the conflict. At the same time, Europe was rediscovering ancient Greek knowledge. They were translating books from Arabic into Latin. They were building universities. And they needed more books. Meanwhile, many libraries in the Middle East were being destroyed or sold during wars and political struggles. So there was anger on both sides. In this tense atmosphere, stories began to be used as weapons. Blame became part of history writing. Some scholars believe that the story about the Library of Alexandria being burned by Arabs was created during this period to shift blame and shape public opinion. The truth is more complicated than one fire or one moment. The Library of Alexandria disappeared in stages. First damaged during Roman civil wars. Then weakened over time. Then the remaining parts destroyed during religious conflicts. And finally lost completely through centuries of neglect and change. It was not one dramatic ending. It was a slow disappearance. And many priceless scrolls were likely lost forever during these events. The biggest mystery is not just how the library was destroyed. It is what was inside it. Because if the stories are true, the library may have held scientific discoveries ahead of its time, ancient maps of the world, lost works of philosophers and scientists, knowledge that could have changed history. And we will never know for sure, because it is gone. The Library of Alexandria did not disappear in a single fire like many people think. Its story is more complex. It was affected by war, religion, politics, and time itself. And over centuries, the truth became mixed with legend. So when you hear, "the library burned," remember this. Sometimes history is not destroyed in one moment. Sometimes, it fades slowly. And what we lose is not just books. It is the knowledge of who we could have become. And that is the hidden story of the Library of Alexandria. Not just one fire, but a long chain of events that slowly erased one of the greatest knowledge centers the world may have ever known. If you found this story interesting, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more deep and mind-blowing history stories like this. And don't forget to like this video, it really helps the channel grow. See you in the next video.